بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all the praise and glory belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him, we seek His guidance and ask for His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the sins and evil of our souls. Whom Allah guides, no one can lead astray. Whom Allah leads astray will find no guidance. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is His servant and messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you who believe, be conscious of Allah and do not die except as Muslim. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, verses 8, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. The meaning of these verses: O you who believe, stand firmly with Allah as witness to fair dealing, and let not hatred of others make you to commit wrong and move away from justice. This is just, that is next to piety, fear Allah, for Allah is well aware of what you do. Further in Surah Ali Imran, verses 104, Allah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Let there arise from you a group of people inviting to all that is good, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is evil. Those are the ones who achieve success. Dear brothers and sisters, the topic for my khutbah today is strengthening our faith through societal engagement. What does that really mean? It's really about how we as Muslims can be a strong community by engaging with the society that we live in. The verses that I recited really speak to the theme of what I want to talk about today. There is a story behind how I came to choose this topic for this khutbah. Last month, during the holidays, I went to India to visit my family. As I got on the plane, I picked up a copy of New York Times. As I was thumbing through the newspaper, pages of this New York Times, there was one article that caught my attention and made me deeply reflect on it and on what it means to me and what it means for us. And that's what I chose as the topic for today. Picture yourself the following scenario. You're living in the heart of a Bible Belt. It's a city that New York Times called the most Bible-minded city in America. It is the end of Ramadan. In fact, it's the last day of Ramadan, to be precise. A young Muslim man, age 24, drives a rented silver Mustang to an army recruiting center and starts shooting indiscriminately. He then drives to a nearby Navy Reserve office and continues the shooting rampage. The result, 4 Navy soldiers and a sailor are dead and scores injured. The question is, how should the Muslim community respond in this Bible-minded city? And how did that community respond back to the Muslim community? That, in essence, was the theme of this article. And this article was titled, Confronting the Uncomfortable, U.S. Muslims Reach Out to Address Questions on Islam and Violence. Let's see what happens. The first thing you should know is that the shooter, Muhammad Yusuf Abdul Aziz, had a very troubled history. He was taking medication for depression, and he was awaiting a court hearing for drunken driving. What is interesting is that the Muslim community did not distance themselves from what happened, knowing that it was one of their community members that committed this heinous act. On the contrary, Dr. Muhsin Ali, a psychiatrist and a member of the community, was quoted in New York Times as saying, "I feel the Muslim community needs to do more," meaning step up and take accountability. So what did the community do? First, they canceled their Eid celebrations. Instead, they gathered at the Baptist church where a service was being held to honor the fallen heroes of that tragedy. They did so without knowing how the local community would react or accept them. About 40% of those in attendance in the church for that service were Muslims. The local faith leaders offered their prayers in the Judeo-Christian tradition without acknowledging the Muslim presence until the end of that evening. Dr. Muhsin Ali gets up to speak on behalf of Muslim citizens of Chattanooga. Did I tell you this happened last year in Ramadan? What he said changed the dynamics of the evening and what will come of the Muslim community in the days to come. In essence, he said, the Muslim community of Chattanooga grieves with the rest of the community for the loss of these lives. Then he asked the Muslims in attendance to stand up as a sign of allegiance to the city of Chattanooga and for peace, and in solidarity with the fallen heroes. The Muslims slowly started rising up, and there was overwhelming applause, many in tears, but all clearly taken away by the immense proportion of this tragedy. And what happened was even more amazing. Next, suddenly the members of the congregation started standing up one by one, and pretty soon the whole church was standing up in support of the Muslim community. And it did not stop there. The community took up collection funds, and they collected over $20,000 to the families of the victims. There was a restaurant called Firefox Grill right close to where the shooting took place, which happened to be owned by a Muslim community member. The restaurant essentially said any customer who comes with a military uniform will get free food for several months. Here's what the mayor of Chattanooga had to say. The response from the tiny Muslim minority helped diffuse what was a highly volatile situation in a southern city of 175,000 where guns and military members are revered. Sergeant Robert Dodge, the guy who heads the recruiting center, here's what he had to say. The Muslim Americans really stepped up and showed their positive support for the community. Outside that recruiting center where the shooting took place, a memorial was set up for those that died on that occasion. A plaque on that memorial was also set, and it reads the following: "We did not riot, we prayed, we did not lash out at easy targets for revenge. Instead, we invited each other into our lives, homes, and places of worship." And if you go to Chattanooga, you will see this flag. This is what's written on it. And I have lived in Tennessee, and I have lived in Alabama, and I know the conservative white nature of this community. I'm going to give you a perspective. A good friend of mine, an Indian origin, a Muslim American of Indian origin, is married to a Caucasian woman from Nashville, Tennessee. One time he was visiting his in-laws who live in rural Nashville, and he decided to go for a walk with his father-in-law. 5-10 minutes into his walk, a police car started following because neighbors had complained a stranger was spotted on the streets. And that is the situation and the place in which this attack occurred. And that's what the community there had to deal with. And what can we learn from this experience? That it is so important for us that we are seen and recognized that we are an integral part of the community, that we are not an outsider, and that we only care about what affects us. The Muslim community of Chattanooga could have taken a different approach on the following grounds. The person who committed this crime has nothing to do with Islam. He is no different than Dylan Roof, the Christian shooter who killed 9 people in the black church. Or they could have said, US military kills a lot of innocent people all over the world. How can we show solidarity? Or they could have said, Eid celebration is a sunnah. How can we stop our celebration to be in a church on the day of Eid? That's not what the community did. They made sure that Muslims felt the loss in the same way the rest of the community did. They did it through their words and through their actions. Let me make this real for you and close to home through an example. 2 days ago, there was a hearing in the city hall right in our city of Redmond, and the hearing was about a marijuana store that is going to come, that is being proposed a short distance from our masjid. Guess how many people showed up for the hearing? 1 family. Our neighboring churches showed up in great numbers. I don't say this in a sense of pointing fingers at others. I hold myself accountable for not doing what I should have been doing, that is to be there and express concern for a marijuana store that is at a short distance from masjid, from churches, from schools where children are there. It just not is in our the sense of civic responsibility somehow is not in our DNA. And we need to change it, and we need to change it now. You still have time. All you need to do is send your email expressing your opinion to planningcommission@redmond.gov. It's also important to have an outside perspective. In the early days of MAPS, we had the mayor of Redmond, John Marchione, visit our old facility. And I was talking to him, I was telling him how we want to be a community that is open to others how we want to be engaged. He sort of looked at me perplexed and said, Hyder, just a few weeks ago, the city had a function to celebrate the cultural diversity. We had representation from every religious community and ethnic community except Muslims. Why are you absent from these occasions? And then he asked us to have a presence in the Redmond City Lights that will happen in December. And with the help of a lot of volunteers and a number of sisters, we have had a presence in the Redmond City Lights, and by all accounts, we are the most popular booth on that festival. The point of this is that I would not have thought having a presence in the Redmond City Lights is what the society and the mayor would think as belonging to the community. When Muslims came to America and established institutions, we started with a position of insecurity, fear of losing our faith, fear that we will lose our children to the larger society, and therefore narrowly define the role of our religious institutions purely on the religious lines as a place of worship. We were a small community and nobody took notice of us, and it was okay. A lot of things have changed, and this is not the time to live in this mode anymore. And look at the seerah of Prophet ﷺ. Even though the mushriks did not believe in the message of Prophet ﷺ, neither the Prophet nor the companions play by one set of rules inside their mosque and a different set of rules outside the mosque. In essence, they didn't have this dichotomy of what they do within the Muslim community and what they do outside of the Muslim community. I would not be talking here to you if my forefathers lived a segregated life where they came from. Let me tell you a little bit about where I come from. I'm from a small village in the southern tip of India. The name of the place is called Kyle Patnam. They say that the word Kyle is derived from Kahira or Cairo, and my forefathers came from Egypt. We are a coastal town, and they were traders of spice. They were immigrants like us, but who came to my hometown. They settled down there. They became part of the society. They embraced the local culture, their language, and married within the local community. In the process, they gave their faith to the local community, and thanks for that, we have a thriving Muslim community in that part of the world. Where I grew up, I never made any distinction as much as I do here today, whether I'm with a Muslim friend or a colleague or a non-Muslim friend. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu salli ala Rasulihil Kareem. So the topic that I started was strengthening our faith through societal engagement. How it is important for us to be part of the community and have a responsibility towards the community. And I gave an example of what happened in Chattanooga last year when a shooter from the community killed 5 soldiers, and how the community responded to this event. I feel that as American Muslims, we are a group of people who are economically successful, economically integrated, but we are socially segregated. As a result, we lack the credibility when the likes of Trump, Pamela Geller come on Fox News, quote a verse of the Quran, throw some Arabic terms, quote verses from Islamic texts, and completely paint a different picture of what Islam is. As a result, because they have a much bigger microphone, our narrative is lost. And to me, there are two ways we can confront this. We need to take these hard questions head on in a credible way without appearing apologetic. As I was searching for this and preparing for this khutbah, I got a chance to listen to Dr. Sherman Jackson, who took on this issue of people quoting text out of context. And he quotes a famous 13th century Maliki jurist. His name is Shihabuddin al-Karafi, who asked the following question: what is the correct view of the rulings found in the schools of Shafi'i, in the Maliki and the rest, that have been deduced on the basis of customs and habits prevailing at the time? He asks further, when the customs change and the practice comes to indicate the opposite of what it used to be, are these rulings still valid or defunct? Or do we say we have to follow them because we don't have the qualifications to perform ijtihad, independent reasoning? In essence, he's saying, if you have a ruling in your classical books, if they don't apply because conditions have changed, do we continue to follow them, or we adapt to the changing times? That's what he's asking. And look at his answer. Listen to me carefully. Holding on to the rulings that have been deduced on the basis of customs and prevailing circumstances, even after these circumstances have changed, holding on to the rulings that have been deduced on the basis of customs and prevailing circumstances, even after these customs have changed, is a violation of consensus, violation of ijma, and an open display of ignorance of religion. This was not said after 9/11. It was not said in 20th century. It is by a well-recognized classic scholar of the 13th century. Dr. Sherman uses this example of this ruling to a number of things, and one he talks about is the ruling about Muslims cannot live in non-Muslim lands. Does this mean we are not living in haram by living in the United States? Obviously no. And he gives us example that this does not apply to here. This does not apply to Muslims here in America or the West, where our ability to practice our faith is constitutionally mandated. The second thing second way to address the credibility gap is through actions. There are a lot of Americans who may not empathize with us, empathize with Islam or Muslims, but they do not like the bigotry of Trump or the likes of Trump. They want to believe in us, but they are being constantly bombarded with what they hear in the media and what happens in the rest of the world and here. We can address this credibility gap through civic engagement by addressing the social issues that we face here, be it gun violence, Black Lives Matter movement, poverty, homelessness. And I'll give you two examples based on my observations in India. Remind you, India is a minority Muslim. About 10 to 13% are Muslims and majority are Hindus. Last month, we had the worst flood in southern part of India, Chennai. By many accounts, this is the worst flood in 100 years. Many homes were destroyed. Scores of people left homeless, without food or water, basic necessities of life. And what was unique about this time was that Muslims stepped up to really provide relief to the needed. And I could see it. I could see it in my own family. The Muslims stepped up in a major way, and it was recognized by the society. And so much so that the local organization called RSS, equivalent to Islamophobes here, started getting jealous and started a smear campaign. The local media and the local population pushed back and stood up for the Muslims. The point is that when you stand up and do the right things, people will come to and talk and take notice of it. The last observation I want to give you today is my visit to my wife's uncle. He's a pediatrician. So when I visited him, I asked him what he was doing. He told me that he's working as a doctor in a geriatrics hospital, which cares for elderly, chronically ill patients who lost all hope of cure for the disease. These are cancer, dementia, and arthritis patients who live in severe pain. And the goal of this hospital is to keep them as comfortable as possible so that they can spend the rest of their life in as much comfort as they can. I asked him who runs this hospital, thinking that it's probably a for-profit organization. To my surprise, he told me that this hospital is run by a Christian institution and is completely free to anyone who needs care. He also told me that, Christian institutions not only provide medical services, they provide educational services in India. Some of the best schools are run by Christian organizations. We got to get to a point and a mindset that we are here and we're here to provide the services the larger society needs. I'll leave you with these final thoughts. I'm very hopeful for a bright future for American Muslim community. As much there are a lot of things that we ought to be doing, we have made tremendous progress. And we got to give shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the institutions that we have created that has enabled to do this. So I want to leave you with hope that there is change that has started, and inshallah it is going to continue. I'm very hopeful because of a future generation that has been brought up in a completely different mindset. There are many people, both at MAPS in the broader Seattle area, that are doing some groundbreaking work. While I may not be aware of everything that is happening, let me give you some examples for us to feel inspired. The work of MCRC and the volunteers that they do day in and day out, and I commend them for the consistency and the impact and the outreach they provide, not only for Muslims, but for the broader Muslim community. One of our community members who just started a startup in the east side is joined with a number of startups in this area to provide technical training for software testing for the less privileged people, so that, and it's happening right here at MAPS, so that when they come out of that training, they would be able to find employment in these technology companies. A few days ago, my wife sent me a letter, an email, which had an essay written by a community member, a girl from this community, seeking admission to Harvard University. It's a really impressive letter. And what is more impressive was that here is a sister whose parents, just from a generation ago, were refugees from a war-torn country. And here, within one generation, it's a sister that is seeking admission to Harvard University. And she has since received an interview for admission. I know that one of the community members is participating in cleaning up the national parks, something that we treasure in this part of the world. I can go on. There are lots of things that are happening that I never used to see and hear for the Muslim community. And we got to do more. A khutbah is only as good as the impact it can have on me and on us. This is not an intellectual exercise to stay stimulated for half hour and forget. Each of us have to ask ourselves, how do I give back? How do I engage? We have our own skills. Let me give you a few examples that you can then take it, and there are many more you could do. There are a number of civic opportunities that we can do with the city, with the county, and the state. We as citizens can be part of that process. And if you go to the City of Redmond website, redmond.gov, you will see today they're requesting for community volunteers to be part of the budget committee. There are volunteers for the planning committee, the very committee that decides whether you have a marijuana store close to the masjid or not. You can be part of that. There's elections happening. I know we may not be able to change the outcome day one, but we got to get involved and try to make a difference. That's how the African American community started. The struggle started centuries ago, but even now the struggle is ongoing. I leave you with the two hadith of Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ said, the most merciful shows mercy to those who have mercy on others. Show mercy to those on earth, the one above the heavens will show mercy on you. And finally, the best of you is one who is most beneficial to others. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us the ones who are inspired and to do what is right for the community. We make the American Muslim community to be really part of the community, doing what is good, enjoining what is good, and forbidding what is evil. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins, to make this ummah a blessed ummah, and that we are part and make us part of this society. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.